With Metallica's 11th studio album titled 72 Seasons due out in a few weeks on April 14th, we finally have the first review of the full album. To date, Metallica has released 4 songs from the record, but Classic Rock Magazine appears to be the first outlet who got to listen to the album in its entirety, and someone on the band's subreddit has published the review. Let's take a look at what the magazine had to say. Classic Rock would give the album an 8 out of 10, writing in their review, "The 11th studio album won't disappoint anyone but the most truculent fan," adding that it sounds in line with the group's last 2 records, 2008's Death Magnetic and 2016's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, adding it is more an, I quote, dense album, and it doesn't let up for its nearly 80-minute run. At the same time, the review would state that the record is, and I quote, intense, and it goes hard, but also added it isn't an easy listen. Since the band's last album, frontman James Hetfield has went through a lot of trial and tribulations in his life, relapsing, getting divorced, and talking openly about his mental health struggles as well. The publication described Hetfield's lyrics as, and I quote, tormented and bleak, while also adding that big melodies are pretty scarce on the album, and the closing track, which they claim is the best song on the record, clocks in at 11 minutes. With April Fool's Day tomorrow, guys, I wanted to do a cool Metallica story that maybe you guys haven't heard before, and I'll be releasing a more full version of it in the coming weeks. But check this out, I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't heard the story before. In 2003, various websites and radio stations reported that Metallica had filed another lawsuit. Up until this point, the band had been involved in a lengthy legal battle with Napster, in addition to women's brand Victoria's Secret. But today's story isn't about just another lawsuit, but rather how stupid the media was, or how Metallica's litigious ways led to many people believing the story. In 2003, it was widely reported that Metallica had filed another lawsuit against a band named Unfaith, who hailed from Canada. The basis of their lawsuit was that the band used, and I quote, Metallica-branded chords E and F. News reports would quote drummer Lars Ulrich, who was reported as stating, "We're not saying we own those 2 chords individually, that would be ridiculous. We're just saying that in that specific order, people have grown to associate E, F with our music." The news report would also feature a quote from Metallica's lawyer at the time, Jill Petrini, who added, "They continue to shamelessly feature the 2 chords on their website song samples, and we just can't have that." The only problem was that the whole thing was a hoax. It would be concocted by a freelance commercial designer and aspiring 29-year-old musician named Eric Ashley. The Canadian, who resided in Montreal at the time, ran a website called Scoop This, would tell CNN, "It has taken a life of its own. Our server crashed 3 times today. The hits are already well over 100,000 visits." Ashley was able to send users to an MTV.com story about the suit, which included those fictional responses and quotes I highlighted earlier. In reality, the MTV story wasn't on the actual MTV.com website, but rather hosted on ScoopThis.com. Part of Ashley's motivation was the recent string of lawsuits Metallica had gotten themselves in, and to see whether people would believe his story, adding, "We all know about the Napster issue, the perfume company, the tire makers, Metallica sued them all. The idea behind this parody was to gauge just how much their reputation has suffered as a result of the suits. Would people go as far to believe that something this extraordinary, this outlandish, could conceivably be true?" Ashley would even quote himself in the fake MTV news story, with his section reading, "I thought it was a prank at first, now I'm not too sure what to think." As for the band Unfaith, who Metallica was allegedly suing, well, a deeper investigation into the act Unfaith revealed it to be Ashley's one-man band. Ashley would admit to spending a good chunk of his time meticulously reproducing the same templates used on MTV.com and Metallica's own website to get people to buy into the hoax, telling CNN, "Getting all the links working was the hardest part. If you click on the option to post on the MTV.com message board about the story, the link would actually take you there to the real thing." Meanwhile, Metallica's label Elektra declined to comment at the time. Eric Ashley would put out an official statement through his band Unfaith, where he chastised the media for not checking their sources. It would turn out that some radio stations who actually believed the hoax went as far as organizing boycott Metallica petitions, and some radio stations went even further, playing Unfaith's music as a way to spite Metallica. Ironically, it was Rolling Stone magazine, CNN, and Core TV who reached out to Metallica and their representatives, as well as the band Unfaith, to see if the story was in fact real. Ironically though, the real MTV.com never fell for the hoax and didn't publish any story about it. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.